Okay.
So we have Ivy,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a mini Aussie. Looks like she's got some reactivity issues.
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and fill me in on Ivy.
So she, when we're outside of the house, anything that kind of moves, like people on bicycles or running, kids running, she wants to like chase them. And it's kind of like she used to just kind of look or, pay attention. But now it's like if I don't have complete control next to me, she's like trying to go for these things.
Okay.
And with other dogs, she's been kind of more reactive. Like usually maybe small dogs, she was kind of like bark at. Now it seems like it's more other types of dogs.
Sure.
But she goes to our veterinary clinic at the daycare, gets along great there, no issues there.
Okay.
And then inside the house, anybody that walks up to the house, it could even be me, and she just starts going nuts in the house, barking.
Mhm.
I have constantly working with saying when she's first barking to say good girl, that she's alerting me, go looking what is going on, then having her move away. But if it's a delivery person, she kind of gets past, she gets so reactive that there's nothing
Right.
I can do to get her calmed down.
Mhm.
Like she'll at the front door like be jumping at the front door. So I can't, in the backyard, I always have her on a leash because I can't have her running around
Mhm.
because there's constantly, people walking by. We do have an invisible fence, but I can't pinch it off where she can just be in the backyard. It's like, for the whole yard. So I can't let her loose.
Okay.
When people come into the house, as long as I'm just having them not pay her attention, she will calm down very quickly. But if they go over to like say hello, sometimes she'll kind of back up. She's like a little afraid, especially people have sunglasses or hats on. Anything with the face, she gets kind of scared.
Okay. If you have a guest come over and like, let's say they've ignored her and she settles down, if they were to move quickly, does she start barking again or is she?
No, she's fine.
Okay. So it's just that initial kind of walk in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh, anything else?
I mean, I guess one of the big things is, like with kids running, like my youngest is 14. So, we got her when he was like 10. So it wasn't an issue, but like little kids running, she wants to chase them. I don't want her chasing them and trying to herd them. I kind of don't know what to do. I know that's her breeds, but that she doesn't kind of listen to me. What I can do to kind of calm her down with that.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I lost you for a second.
We were having issues with our internet earlier today, so I
Okay.
think it's
Oh,
with your kids or kids, she's fine. With other kids, she wants to chase them. You don't want her to herd them.
smaller kid, like little, like 2 and 3-year-old, they can get easily scared. Then they're screaming, then she's barking,
Yeah.
it just like creates this tension.
Correct. Anything else?
Maybe something will come up as we're talking, but I think those are kind of the main things. Like when for walks outside, I don't want my kids walking her because I'm just worried they're not going to have control of her.
For the reactivity stuff, How long have you seen that for?
Um, I would say it's probably since she was probably maybe 14 or 15 months. And
Okay.
it's just kind of, I would say the past 6 months, it's just really like it's just gotten worse.
Okay. But she's 4 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay. So at a year and a half or so is when you start to see the reactivity, but in the past 6 months, it's escalated a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Where
Okay.
that's when I wouldn't let my kid, like, I want to usually be with my kids because they're not, tell me she needs to walk, next to you so that they're having control of her. I
Mhm.
think that's part of it. They just kind of let her off to smell and stuff. And then, someone runs by or something. And
Right.
that's,
Um, and then she's had previous training before, but then the
yeah.
COVID had happened.
Yeah.
Okay. Was it like with positive reinforcement or?
Yeah. We weren't doing anything with treats. It was all with praise.
Oh, okay. Praise only training.
Yeah, so it was more like just kind of going over the basics, with healing, calm, like it was to go over the obedience, to have me in charge, and that went really well.
Okay. Um, so do you know what you're missing here? Like why you're struggling with these issues?
I would be that we're not in charge, that she's in charge. She feels like she has to protect the home and um, be the leader.
Okay. Um, what do you think is fueling the reactivity?
I think like that she wants to protect.
Okay. Um, how do you think you would establish yourself as a leader?
Just doing more on the leash, her staying next to me, um, keeping her calm in situations like, walking um, by people with bicycles, like kind of heading it off before she starts, like having her like pay attention to me versus like looking around what's going on.
Okay. Um, if Ivy were to do something that another dog disagreed with, what do you think that dog would do?
Um, She more just barks. I've never had like where dogs like are confrontational. Is that what you're asking? Or she just barks?
Line, what would that dog do to correct her?
I mean, I haven't been in a situation like that, so I don't know.
Okay. Are you a first time donor?
No, I've had schnauzers and grown up with all different types of dogs.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a feel for your understanding of dog behavior. A dog which is nipper biter. So if she got out of line with another dog to correct her, they would nip and or bite her.
Okay,
And it doesn't make the dog aggressive. That's how dogs regulate each other.
right.
Okay. So like for puppies, if the mother doesn't like the way the puppies are treating her, maybe they're climbing all over and stuff, she would nip and bite her puppies to teach them to respect her personal space.
Mm-hmm.
So what your dog sounds like what she's struggling with is overstimulation.
Okay.
Okay? Overstimulation is the brain's inability to settle down or relax. Okay. So this is why she's reactive even to you coming into the home, is
Mm-hmm.
because she's already always on kind of this alert. So then when you add an extra stimuli, whether it's someone she knows or someone she doesn't know, she just barks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So it's not uncommon for a dog to bark in response to a sound, to bark to communicate things, right? But
Right.
typically, most dogs don't bark at their owners, right? They'll like be happy and they'll be wiggling and stuff like that. There might be like a lot of excitement.
Yeah.
But usually if a dog is barking, even when the owners are coming home, it's overstimulation. Okay.
Okay.
And a lot of stuff that you're like reactivity towards dogs and bikes. Well, not dogs, but bikes and running kids and fast moving things.
Mm-hmm.
Usually overstimulation paired with the fact that you have a herding type breed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why overstimulation is an issue, and this is one of the most common problems that I come across, is because people don't discipline their dogs the way dogs should be disciplined. Okay, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So human discipline would be put the dog in a kennel, shake a can of pennies, use a water bottle, clap and say no, scold their dog, the things that dogs don't do or understand.
Mm-hmm.
Dogs do physicality. Dogs understand physicality. Okay. So, and that's what's missing here is that she's not being corrected to deter the things you do not want. Okay.
Okay.
So in training, we have 4 quadrants. Positive reinforcement, which is the most common one, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, and negative punishment. Okay. Are you familiar with these terms?
Yes.
So positive and negative in this context simply means add and subtract.
Okay.
And reinforcement means good and punishment means bad. So positive reinforcement, add something good. Positive punishment, add something bad. Okay.
Okay.
So with the praise, you're adding something good, right? With treats, you're adding something good.
Mm-hmm.
To teach your dog, do what you just did again, right?
Okay.
So if I say sit and the dog sits and I feed them, I'm telling them, yes, when I say sit, if you put your butt down, I'm going to pay you. Do that again, right? But then what do you do if the dog gets up and you don't want them to get up, right? Well, if you withhold the positive, that's not really a consequence for a dog. So like for a child, you can say, if you don't do your homework, you're not going to see your friends for 2 weeks, right? And that the child can hear that, understand that, and go, do I really not want to see my friends for 2 weeks?
Mm-hmm.
And decide to do their homework, right?
Right.
Dogs don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where positive punishment comes into play, where we
Okay.
would add in an aversive. So then we're deterring the dog from getting up. Okay. So like, let's say I was raised old school growing up. I was spanked.
Mm-hmm.
So if my mom said, go to your room, Jesse, and you can't come out until you get permission. Okay. And I try to sneak out, she would then add something bad. I would get spanked. Right. And then I would go back to my room in response. Similar, right? I tell the dog to sit, the dog puts their butt down, they get up, there has to be consequence. The dog puts their butt back down, we remove the consequence.
Okay. Yeah.
So when we're talking about correcting dogs, the ones that I listed before, like the timeout and things like that, don't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just too far past what a dog is able to comprehend. Dogs are all about the present. They don't think about yesterday. They don't think about tomorrow. They don't even think about it a minute ago. Okay. They're all about what's going on within the moment. Okay. So if she's lunging and barking out the window at the delivery guy, and then he leaves and 5 minutes go by and I try to correct her for that,
Mm-hmm.
it's past the moment. Whereas with a child, you can come in and go, I know I heard you yelling 5 minutes ago, and I'm going to correct you for that now. Right. So for dogs, they have to be corrected within the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we're applying something quote unquote negative or bad to deter the behavior from happening again. Okay. Is this making sense?
Yes.
So before did you booking this, did you do any research on how I train and the methods that I use and everything?
Not too much. I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's okay. That's what this is for.
Yeah.
So I use prong and or e-collar. Okay. So prong collar is the spiky looking collar. It looks like a medieval torture device, but it's designed to mimic a dog bite. Okay. That's why it looks the way it looks. It's a very effective tool. When I use it, I really only use it to help give the owner more leverage. I don't really use it as a primary form of training anymore. Okay. It tends to take too much technical skill for the average dog owner. Timing, the skill of being able to correct correctly, the level of correction, the intensity, all that stuff. It's a little bit too complicated for the average dog owner. Okay. So my primary training tool is e-collar, which is like your electronic fence. Okay.
Yeah.
So your electronic fence probably has like 5 levels. And you would set it to a particular setting. And with the electronic fence, the job is simply to keep the dog within a boundary, right? So we don't really care about nuancing the level or the intensity because we don't want to risk the dog escaping the yard,
Right.
right? So if I put it on 5 and the dog tries to sneak out and they get a very harsh correction and it makes them run back to the house, like that's what I want, right? Because if the dog gets out, they can get stolen, they can hit by a car, they can get lost, like it can be even worse.
Right.
So the electronic fence is simple. Just don't leave this area, right? E-collar is more refined. So my e-collar has 127 settings. Think of 5 and 127 as the same. I just have 102 more divisions. Okay. So that's more nuanced. So let's say when you mentioned earlier, when she gets reactive and she's kind of too far gone and you can't like settle her. Have you ever watched or seen in a movie where someone will be freaking out and then someone just smacks them, right? To like just like knock some sense into them and then like try to talk to them. Similar, but not to like as intense. Physicality allows you to break through the intensity so that then you can communicate to the brain.
Okay.
Because if she's too far gone and you're saying sit or come or anything, she's like, whatever's happening right now is more important than whatever it is you're saying, right? So we would either one, correct the behavior to deter it, or two, we need something to allow us to communicate to her even though she's lost, so to speak. Okay. That's where tools like the remote collar come into play.
Okay.
Because it's physicality at the press of a button. And the way I would approach your situation is it sounds like a lot of things, but it's really simple. Okay. Ivy just needs formal discipline and consequence to help relax her.
Okay.
If a dog is more passive, they're less likely to trigger. Okay? If a dog is already on alert or already on edge, you add something in, they're going to most likely trigger.
Right.
Okay. So here, the one command that we always teach first for these cases is the heel command, which is walking on a leash.
Yeah.
So our form of walking on a leash is very strict. If I take 5 steps, the dog takes 5 steps. If I take 3 steps, the dog takes 3 steps. When I stop, the dog automatically sits. When you have that level of focus, and it sounds complicated, but it's very easy to achieve. But when you have that level of focus, it helps the dog turn off. Okay.
Yes.
It helps her learn how to shut out the world and just focus on you so she can walk and not care about the dog or the bike or the kids at the playground or the UPS truck going by. It just allows her to be passive and exist in the world in that state. Okay. So then the dog learns, oh, I can be in the world and be calm. Okay. I don't have to be worked up. So once we teach her how to exist in a passive fashion, we see what does that fix. Okay. So the reason why the heel is so important is because it allows us to apply discipline without confrontation. Because the dog doesn't know where it's coming from. It allows us, so when a dog feels e-collar, typically the response is to run away or to move. So we use heel, which is a moving behavior of walking, to allow the dog to express the need to move, but also teach them that it doesn't mean to move away, it means to move towards us. Okay, because we don't ever want the dog to run away from the e-collar. The other thing is, going back to the physicality part, think of the e-collar as a bite on a button. Okay.
Say that again.
A bite on a button.
A bite on a button. Okay.
Okay. Think of it that way. So when you press the button, and so the e-collar is simply a muscle contraction. That's a muscle stimulator. So it stimulates the muscle, and it's it's uncomfortable to a degree. Okay. So we have to find the number that's appropriate to her. So like, let's say it's 26 at 127, for example. Okay. And 26 is concerning to her. And it's concerning to the point where she's going to want to alter her behavior to avoid the consequence. Okay. So as we're teaching the heel, you're nipping and biting at her, and you're communicating to her saying like, hey, like you can't do that. You can't do that. That's not an option. You can't bark at that. You can't do that. Right. As you bite her, you'll start to see her calm down.
Okay.
Okay? Because by biting her, you're eliminating options. So part of overstimulation, one, is inability to turn off, but two can also be too many options. She can stick the ground, she can chase the dog, she can bark at the kid on the bike, she can lunge at the kids on the playground,
Right.
she can pee on this, she can poop on that. It's all these options, and the dog is overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes out as frustration, which is the reactivity stuff that you're dealing with. Okay. So by removing these options, again, it's just helping her like turn off and go like, hey, none of these things don't matter anymore because you can't even do them anyways. Okay. So then we also start to deter behaviors as well as we're correcting her. So the heal command is almost always the first thing that we work on with any case because of like all the benefits that it has. Like it fixes about 70 to 80% of problems. Okay. And so anything leash related, it would help address. If you're doing it correctly, we should start seeing her calm down within the home.
Mm-hmm.
So people tend to think of the problems and think that we're going to target the problems, right? But when you're targeting the problem, like lunging and barking at the UPS guy and stuff, that is the symptom.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the root. Okay, so what we want to address is the root. So the root is overstimulation.
Okay.
So by calming her down, we should then see less of the other stuff.
Okay.
Now, is it going to fix everything? No. It may, but probably not. So
Mm-hmm.
then let's say we do a class or two and you're like, hey, Jesse, like she's so much calmer now, but we still struggle with like the delivery guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense because that's an external stimuli coming into the yard.
Right.
So there's a trigger there. She's being territorial, which is normal. So then we would address that directly. Okay.
Okay.
So now we come into the situation where we would confront that problem. Okay.
Okay.
But like all the stuff on the leash or even like just coexisting with kids running around is something that should be addressed by all this stuff. Okay. If it isn't, not a problem. So like if I were to be at the playground and I was chasing a kid who didn't want to be chased, my mom would just call me over and say like, we're going home because you did that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would understand that punishment, right? Or I might get whooped,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now there's a physical aversive saying, don't chase kids at the playground, right? So it'd be similar for Ivy. If we see her continue to try to chase children, we would simply nip and or bite her with the collar or
Okay.
another tool to deter her from doing that behavior.
Okay.
Okay. And you're not being mean because that's another thing that people think about with dogs is they think that they're being mean to the dog, but the dog doesn't view it that way. Okay, because dogs will correct each other even if they don't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for humans, we look to like a third party, like the police,
Mm-hmm.
right? If there's an altercation, we would call the police. They would come in and kind of regulate everything. Plus, we have language to try to de-escalate things, right? But sometimes it becomes physical confrontation. So dogs don't have communication to that degree. They can't sit there and say like, hey, I don't like the way you barked at me right now. It's kind of loud, right? They would say, hey, you barked at me. I don't like it. Here
Right.
we go.
Take care of it at that
Right.
moment.
Is this all making sense?
Uh-huh.
Questions about any of this stuff so far?
Nope.
So what kind of dictates the length of time and the cost of everything is simply like how much you're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Your case is pretty straightforward. Okay. So the way I approach things is I hear what you're talking about. I kind of assess the situation, and then I go, okay, this was what I would do I recommend to help with the problem and
Mm-hmm.
just like the problem. And then there's that plus if you want more.
Okay.
So
Is it to get to a point? So if you're doing this like to get to a point, like if she's not on the leash, then she'll be like if she goes to chase someone, is it then that you have the e-collar? So that's like an extension of you. So then you're correcting that behavior when she's not right next to you.
correct. Now, so e-collar, so one of the reasons or many of the reasons why I only train with e-collar now is because right off the bat, you get off-leash control.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like I had a client, they were my first post-COVID client. The dog had broken the husband's shoulder 3 times. sent him to the ER 2 times in like 2 years. And he was a completely friendly dog. Okay. He just had terrible obedience and would pull him all over the place. Okay. We had that fixed within a class. Before the third class, which is where we would do recall, before the third class, he took off on them because across where they live, there's a park, and everybody in the neighborhood takes their dogs there to play. And he was at the park and he took off towards the street because he saw like one of his friends walking down the sidewalk. And the owner on the fly just like maxed out the collar and was able to make him return. Right. We hadn't done recall yet. But, you know, she asked me, she's like, hey, Jesse, this happened. I had to do this.
Yeah.
He came back. Was that correct? And I said, yeah. I'm like, because it's either you didn't do anything and it was a guarantee he was going to hit the street, maybe get hit by a car, or you gamble, I have this tool, I know how to use it, I'm going to just gamble that I'm going to make my dog return. Worst thing is he ends up doing what he was going to do anyways, right? In her case, she was able to make the dog return. So even in kind of, and I've had that happen to a number of people, like kind of off the cuff moment, you have the ability to regain control, okay? So ideally, she wouldn't even be taking off to chase people. Okay, that would be all addressed. But let's say something happened out the blue, right? Maybe someone just came out around the corner and it kind of like spooked her. You have this, the ability to shut her down.
Okay.
And that's on or off leash.
Yeah.
So what dictates the length of time and stuff is simply how much you're trying to achieve. This is a pretty straightforward case. So all the behavioral stuff is probably going to be addressed with the leash walking exercise. Otherwise, it would really just probably be an additional class to address that problem. Okay. So it would be 2 classes on heel. Those are almost always the first 2 classes, right? So class 1, I teach you how to use the e-collar. We work with Ivy. I work with you on the exercise, and I'll say, practice this. And when I see you in a week, let me know what improves, okay? Come back a week later. Jessie on the leash, she's a dream. Reactivity is really good, but she's still kind of barking in the house. She's calmer, but she's still barking, right? I go, okay, we're gonna make a couple of adjustments, do the part 2 of heel for week 2, see you in a week, okay? Come back, we do week 3. How's it going? Really good, but she's still barking like at the delivery guy, or if she's still barking when she hears noises and stuff. Then I go, okay, now I'm going to teach you how to kind of like spank your dog, so to speak, okay? But in a fashion that she understands to now start to deter those behaviors. So in the beginning, we have to teach her what the e-collar is, okay? It's not something that we can just put on and hope the dog figures it out. It's something that we condition so she understands the communication, okay? So then by class 3, anything that's kind of lingering, we can start addressing directly, because then what we did in the beginning didn't work to address that.
Okay.
And then you start doing that, okay? And as long as you're doing the homework, this should be pretty straightforward, okay? What holds people back is disciplining their dog. You know, so like growing up, I remember a few times my mom was like, I don't want to do this, but I'm going to have to do this. And she would spank me, right? So it didn't make her feel good to do that, but she did it because it was to my benefit, right? In order to raise me into a good person, she had to deter me from making certain choices. So it's the same thing here, but for dogs aren't like humans in the sense that they would learn at some point to be a good dog. Think of your dog as always she's a 3 to 4 year old child forever. Okay. So if you're consistent, yes, the behaviors become consistent. She'll stop being reactive or so on and so forth and responds to you. But if my mom spanked me and then a year later, I did that very same thing, I would get spanked again, right? It wouldn't be like, hey, I spanked you already for this. Like, why would you do that, right? It would just be like, oh, you did it again? Here we go. And that's what people think. People think like, oh, well, if I've disciplined my dog, why would I have to discipline him again? I'm like, because it's a dog, right? And even humans, like, you know, we're not perfect. You know, we make the same mistakes. Like, you know, I got a speeding ticket the other day for running a red light. And I know that there's a red light camera at that red light.
Yep.
right? It still happens. So as long as you're consistent, your dog will be consistent.
Okay.
But you know, it's not a thing of where we would train the dog and the dog goes, you know what, I'm going to change my ways. And I'm gonna not, you know, make life hell for my mom. I'm gonna be good now. You know, it doesn't work.
No.
It's not how that's not how dogs think. So as long as you're consistent, this should be pretty straightforward. So 2 classes on heel, a
Okay.
class on behavior. Okay. So I would put you more so kind of like at the 6-class range.
Okay.
2 on the heel, a class on behavior. The next thing I'd most likely suggest you cover is recall,
Hmm.
which is come when called. So this is if she's off a leash and she's at the park, we still have a means of control.
Yeah, we do a dog park, and
Mhm.
she's good with that. You know, she'll come back and you know, she'll play with some dogs, but she does come back when we do call her.
Okay. Is she ever off leash in unenclosed areas?
Yeah, it is unenclosed. I mean, it's at a park.
Okay, so it's an open park.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, so with that, that would come into play. Like, let's say uh, she's out in the yard, um, and someone's like walking on the front lawn or something, and
Hmm.
she takes off. Is you have control in that context.
Okay.
Okay. Um, and then that would leave, so that recalls typically 2 classes as well, which leaves a 6th class as a variable. I'd most likely cover stationary work, which means like go here and don't move, no matter what's going on. So if you have a lot of guests coming over, or if you just want her to kind of just settle for a bit and
Hmm.
practice, because one of the issues with dogs is people give dogs too much freedom in the home. You know, because they're thinking like it's inside the house. Like, why does my dog need structure? I'm like, but that's where like the dog is doing a bulk of the behaviors,
Hmm.
right? Because they're inside most of the day. So like barking out the window at, you know, UPS guys or people walking by the front door or dogs walking by the front window, all that stuff is something the dog is constantly rehearsing. Okay. So adding structure within the home is also important. So that's most likely the last thing that I would cover, unless we find that maybe like the behavior stuff, for whatever reason, is more complicated.
Okay.
Is by doing the 6 classes, you just have like a bigger window to get things done.
Right.
But I've been doing this for 10 years. As long as people do the homework, it should be pretty straightforward. Okay. Where it would be 2 classes on heel, a class on behavior, everything's going well there. We will jump into recall, class 4 and 5, and then class 6 can be like an overview, or class 6 can be, you know, stationary control.
Mhm.
And then that'll allow you to like go to a restaurant and take her with you and just have her there, like instead of like exploring or pulling on the leash,
Right.
she's sitting still and she's confined, and like, you know, people can be walking by and cooing at her and dogs can walk by, but she's just there nice and
Okay.
relaxed.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we do like we have her bed in the kitchen. So if she's like no like doing something, and I'll just tell her to go to her bed and she'll lay there.
Mhm.
But I couldn't leave her there 15 minutes. I mean, so to see like how long that they would be able to stay there. Is that what you're talking about with stationary, or it's just to be not reactive? They're just there um, laying or sitting.
Right. So stationary is 3 commands: sit, down, or place. In your case, if we're doing the 6, I would teach place, which would be go to your bed.
Hmm.
But when we do go to your bed, it's like for as long as 2 to 3 hours or more if the owner wants.
Okay.
Right. So that's why I was like, you know, if guests come over and it's like she's a little bit too rambunctious because they got kids or something,
Yeah.
like, let's say, you know, we try teaching her how to coexist with kids. And you're like, you know what, Jesse, like, I don't want to have to like constantly be monitoring her because I got to keep an eye on her and correct her and stuff.
Right.
Then I go, okay, then we have stationary work. Okay.
Okay.
Then I can just tell her, go to your bed, and the kids can run around and stuff. And you know, she's right there and she's not going to move for the next hour or whatever that the
Okay.
kids are playing.
All right. Yeah, I didn't know that they could, you know, to just be there for an hour
Oh,
or
yeah.
two.
So there's 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. Okay. That are meant to be functional. All these commands are meant for you to be able to go out and live the life you'd want with your dog. No questions asked. Okay.
Mhm.
That's what those commands are meant for. But I think now they're looked at as kind of tricks or things that we do with our dog for fun, to do treats and stuff.
Mhm.
But like heel, like my clients, a lot of my clients do off leash obedience. So
Okay.
like their dogs will walk right at their hip with no leash on, and they can walk through Lincoln Park, they can walk through Oz Park, they can go to the dog park, like all that stuff with no leash. They can let their dog off anywhere, dogs playing, bunch of distractions going on. They have reliable recall no matter what. Then go to a restaurant and tell their dog to lay down. The dog won't move the entire time that they're there. They go to Home Depot, they go to PetSmart, they go to Petco, and their dog is just under control, right? Is obedience is meant to be applicable. Okay. How well your dog is trained is when I mentioned earlier, is what dictates the length of time. So it's like, yeah, Jesse, like I would like my dog to like sit still while the kids are playing and I don't have to worry for 3 hours.
Mhm.
And yeah, I would like to walk my dog anywhere without having to worry about leash pulling or reactivity or any of that stuff. That's what we train for.
Okay.
So the way I approach it is I look at your case and I go, okay, bare minimum to kind of address your problem, this is what I would recommend. But
Mhm.
then there's longer programs where you would take your obedience further.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I recommend for what you're dealing with here is the 6 classes,
Okay.
which actually are you looking to do in person or like a board and train type option?
What is the second option?
A board and train.
What is that? Where you're
That's where we have the dog and we train them here.
okay.
Okay. So the difference or the pros and cons is with in person, the pro is you learn a lot more. Okay.
Mhm.
Because so I'm present with you. I coach you through everything. I don't need to touch your dog to train them. Okay. I'm teaching you to train your dog and then I give you homework. So you learn more. It's more kind of hands on for you.
Mhm.
The con would be it takes longer. That's why it's like a 6 class
Right.
program, right? Because I'm teaching you to teach your dog. And then you're going to make mistakes and you're going to come back. We're going to fix most mistakes and we're going to, build on things and you come back the following week. The other con is if you're wanting to work with me, I know from what I heard with Maria, I think I'm booking now into June, July. So
Okay.
depending on your availability, because most people are 9 to 5 now. Uh, and so my evenings and weekends are really crazy.
Sure.
If you have daytime availability, that's easier.
Mhm.
But I think even that now is getting full. So
Okay.
Maria knows all that stuff. So
Okay.
the con would be again to work with me. It's a longer wait. With the board and train option, you bring the dog here, we train them. So the pro is you can get in sooner. We also cover more. We cover more obedience stuff than you would in your program. Okay,
Okay.
because we already know how to train dogs.
Mhm.
So within 2 days here, we've already taught all 6 commands. And then now we're just training all 6 commands. And then we have to transfer that to you. Okay.
Right.
So like think of 1 week of our time as 3 weeks of your time.
Okay.
Okay. So if you did a 6 week program, I would expect if everything's going well, we would cover heal, we would cover recall, and we would cover place command. Okay. Pending everything's going well.
Mhm.
With the board and train, even if you did a 1 week program, we cover all 6 commands: sit, stay down, come, place, heal. Okay, so
Okay.
your dog comes out already having learned these commands. Then
Okay.
we teach you.
Okay.
Um, the con to a board and train is that the dog is trained with us. Now we have to transfer it to you.
Right.
Okay, so what we've done is for our board and trains and our daycare and trains, is we make a video for each week that we have the dog. Okay.
Mhm.
So if a dog comes here for 1 week, you would get a video that's about an hour to an hour and a half. And it's the first session of every behavior that Ivy would have been taught. Okay. So the
Okay.
6 commands,
Mhm.
plus they go over how the e-collar works for Ivy.
Right.
So you're seeing that being applied to your dog. And then they send you that video. And then you would watch and review that video. and then you would pick up Ivy at the end of your week, and then we would tell you just practice. Okay, watch your video
Okay.
and practice. Okay, taking what you've learned, because in the video, Enrique is essentially explaining everything. He's
Okay.
saying, this is why we do this, and this is what's happening right now. This is when I'm pressing the button, this and that, right? So that you can see the process, so that you can kind of take that and then apply it once you get Ivy. Okay.
Okay.
You take a couple of weeks, you take a week, you take a month, we don't care. And then you come back and say, hey, Ivy's doing really well, but I still struggle with like this command and correcting this behavior.
Okay.
Okay. You set up a follow-up. Enrique would help you kind of close the gap on the obedience, and then also explain how to approach the behavior.
Okay.
So you also get follow-up lessons with the board and train program. And that's what that's meant for. Okay.
Okay.
So when it comes to length of time for the board and train program, when the dog leaves here, the longer we have the dog, the closer we get them to off-leash reliability. Okay. So like I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs in person. Then I have 1, 2, 3, and 4-week programs, board and trains.
Okay.
Like a 1-week program is like a 3-week program, 2-week program is like a 6-week program, so on and so forth.
Right.
So if Ivy was here for 2 weeks, you would get 2 videos. You would get the one for her first week, which is she's just learning everything. And then for the second week, you get a second video, and we start progressing Ivy to a long leash to already start pushing towards off leash. Okay. So then you kind of see the progression from week 1 to week 2.
Uh-huh.
And then again, you would pick up your dog, you would leave, you would practice with all the stuff that you've learned from the videos. And then when you're ready, you come back and say, hey, this is what I struggle with. And then you would book your follow-up session.
Okay. So is there any like, so after say I would do the 1 week board and train, then when I come and pick her up, I'm just getting the video. There's no, you're working with me with her to show me anything. It's just from the video.
So you can do that.
Okay.
Okay. So the board and train is kind of versatile in the sense that if your preference would be, I want to have an hour lesson when I pick up my dog,
Mm-hmm.
you would just schedule that.
Okay.
And then you don't want to do that right when you book your board and train,
Mm-hmm.
because I just opened up Enrique's schedule and he already like booked up.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really crazy right
A
now.
lot of help needed.
So you would plan ahead, right?
Okay.
And this way we know, okay, he keeps his slot open. And then when you come to pick her up, he'll work with you. We always tell people, please review that video.
Sure.
Because you just come in already with insight.
So I would get that while she's there. I would be able to you would be sending me the video while she's
Yeah,
there.
we try to get it up because we teach everything within 1 to 2 days. We just cover everything right away.
Yeah.
We film everything, and then my media editor is here, and then he tries to push it out as quickly as possible. So as soon as it's uploaded, Enrique would follow up and say, hi, Ivy's video is now up, and then you would watch that video. Okay. Now, if we're really booked, like we just wrapped up like 4 or 5 boarding trains.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got backlogged because I have my personal training clients, Enrique's doing his thing, and my media, and we're doing like 60 to 80 hours of training footage,
Wow.
a week. So now my media guys got to sit there and like go through everything and edit it. So we got backlogged, but now things are kind of slowed down because everybody's leaving.
Right.
But yeah, we try to get the video to you as quickly as possible. So ideally, you have it, and then you can do your follow-up. Okay. If for whatever reason we don't have it to you by the time you pick up Ivy, my suggestion would be wait for the video, and then watch it, and then come back.
Okay.
Questions?
No, I mean, I think that's probably a better option, I would say right now, to do the board and train, because I do want to get moving, with
Sure.
getting her trained. And I mean, I love doing stuff in person. I mean, I would, if that was the option and I could get in soon, that's what because I like learning
Sure.
and I want to be able to apply it to her. But I think having the video, it would be so helpful as well. and that I can do in person, afterwards.
Correct. And for your case, so like I don't always recommend board and trains to people, but your case is simple enough that I'm not worried about the behavior post the board and train.
Okay.
So like I get people that like maybe their dog has like aggression issues and they want to do a board and train, right? And board and train is more money for me in a short amount of time.
Mhm.
But I know that that person needs to learn how to train their dog because of the issues that dog has. Does
Right.
that make sense? Because we already
Yeah.
know how to handle these types of dogs here. In your case, because I'm 98% positive this is overstimulation, because the fact that you're actually able to take her to the dog park
Mhm.
is part of that. Because if a dog is reactive on leash and they're aggressive, you're going to see the same thing off leash.
Okay.
Right. So that's how I can tell, like, okay, yeah, this isn't any like real reactivity, like in the sense of like she's putting out ill intent. It's just a dog that's overloaded.
Well, I think too, could I say like fearful? I feel like if another dog's more down, she backs off. She knows her place. She's not.
Yeah, but that's just her place. It's kind of, like with people, like some people are softer than other people.
Mhm.
Like not everybody is meant to run a business. Not everybody is meant to be the president of the United States, right? Like these are roles that take specific personality types.
Mhm.
So uh, I will say you actually have, in my opinion, a nervous dog.
Mhm.
But I don't think nervousness is a primary source for the behaviors you're seeing.
Okay.
So like when you said when someone comes in, if they have a hat or a mask on and she's kind of standoffish, is to me that's a nervous response.
Okay.
Okay, but then when I asked you if she settles and then someone claps or jumps up, does she start barking again? And you said no, she's fine. Then
Mhm.
that tells me she's nervous, but she's not like nervous.
Okay.
Because that's one of the symptoms is everything will calm down, the dog will be fine, and then somebody will get up and the dog just triggers again and starts
Yeah.
barking.
It's like starts all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the response she's giving it, so fear, nervousness, and anxiety look very similar.
Mhm.
So when you said she's fearful, I don't pick up fear, I pick up nervousness,
Okay.
because fear is more panicked. Fear is like, get me out of here, like running away.
Well, and I would see too, like you guys having her, then you can definitely see her personality.
Sure.
But like I said, we take her to the veterinary clinic and they do daycare. And she
Right.
is so happy there, kisses everyone. She's just really enjoys it. So,
Yeah.
would like, that assessment too, to make sure that we're hitting the right areas for her.
Sure. Yeah. So all that stuff, in this case, is stuff that can be worked on, and I'm not worried about with the follow-up um, carrying over to you, all the
Mhm.
stuff that we do, because that's my main thing is I don't want someone to bring their dog here and then leave and go like, what was
Right.
that
No,
for?
no, not for all this money and time. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
this is what I want to work to get her to be calm and other people to be around her and know that what a nice, sweet dog she is.
Yeah. No, I'm sure she's a sweetheart. She's just overstimulated.
Mhm.
So yeah, so then that the board and train option, we can get you in sooner.
Okay.
And then if you want to do a board and train, I wouldn't put you in contact with Maria. My kennel manager, Kimberly, would reach
Okay.
out and she would get that process going.
Okay.
Because Maria only handles my schedule.
Okay.
That's her only job. And then even that for her is now crazy. So
Okay.
Kimberly handles all the facility related stuff. So she'd reach out to you. Um, so
And then, well, and so with the board and train, are you going out to to the park, to like a Home Depot, or is it all just in the facility? Are you getting out in
yeah, so the dogs get training walks. So it's funny that you say Home Depot because Home Depot is literally uh,
Mhm.
a 5-8 minute walk away, and we do take the dogs there
Yeah.
to expose them. We want to make the training as realistically applicable
Yeah.
as possible. The only thing that we can't recreate, of course, is like barking when people come over. or
Mhm.
barking at the delivery guy, but that's actually an easy fix.
Okay.
Okay, that's not a problem. That's why with your case, I'm suggesting the board and train, because I'm not worried about fixing things post the training, and the stuff that I know that won't be addressed can be addressed easily.
Okay.
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 Um, so very common question that we get is, when does the e-collar go away?
Mhm.
In my book, when you need it, it doesn't.
Mhm.
So all that means is, like, if she's going to be at the dog park, if she's going to be off leash anywhere, maybe when you first have guests come over to help kind of settle her down more quickly,
Right.
when the kids are running around playing, she'd have her collar on. Otherwise, if
Mhm.
she's a great dog, you don't need it.
Okay.
So think of the e-collar as a cop on a collar.
Mhm.
You drive,
Uh-huh.
you go on the
Yes.
expressway,
Yes.
you go the speed limit.
No.
Right? Most people don't go the speed limit, right? But if you see squad car, what happens?
Yeah. No, you slow down.
Slow down. So even as humans, we don't obey the rules, right, to the T. We play the boundaries a bit when we know we can get away with it.
Mhm.
This is called opportunistic behavior. All animals do it. Okay. So when it comes to the e-collar, that's why I say it's like a cop on a collar. When it's present, Ivy's going to know to behave better. She's going to know there's threat of consequence. She's going to be much easier to handle. But also, um, even as humans, if we are not, kind of listening to the rules the way they're supposed to be, why would we expect the dog to?
Mhm.
Because this is a very common question that I get. They're like, when does my dog, again, when does my dog learn to be a good dog? I'm like, well, even humans, like, we don't, we're
Right.
not perfect. Neither are the dogs.
Yeah.
So it's nothing good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. So only when you need it, right? Like I said, if
Okay.
she's a great dog, otherwise you don't need to have it on. You're good. And it's not that you're always having to use it.
Mhm.
Um, it's just the presence of it keeps her in line.
Right.
But then if something happens, you have the ability to regain that control. Okay.
Mhm.
The other thing would be, when we work with dogs, what makes us very effective at what we do, because we get some very difficult dogs from time to time. And I get dogs from other trainers. I get dogs from other trainers that use the collar, and the owner is still struggling.
Mhm.
Okay. So in my theory of training, it's as low as possible, but as high as needed. Okay. Most trainers train with with low level e-collar ideology. Okay. Where some our collar goes to 127, and they'll train the dog like at an 8. Okay.
Mhm.
I get maybe a handful of dogs out of over 100 dogs a year that might be that receptive to 5 to 8 on the collar. Okay. So then when I get those dogs from other trainers, and the owner's like, I worked with the trainer, they did e-collar, it doesn't work. My dog doesn't listen. And I'll ask them, like, well, what's your level on the collar? They're like 8. And I'm looking like at an 80-pound dog. And I'm
Mhm.
like, no, no, no. I'm like, and they're like, but it worked with my trainer. I'm like, yeah, because that's a trainer.
Yeah.
You're not a trainer, right? You're not going to have that nuance. So by as low as possible, high as needed, what I mean is, even though she's only like 20 something pounds, I think I saw
Yeah. 28.
28 pounds,
Mhm.
size, breed, personality type, temperament, sweetness do not dictate the level of the e-collar. Okay.
Okay.
What the dog does in response to the e-collar is what does dictate it. So I have 2 clients, both with 18-pound dogs, uh, Aussie doodles. One
Mhm.
of them, her number is 80.
Oh, gee.
The other one is 20. Okay. Now the one on 80 is not yipping. She's not yelping. She's not in discomfort. She's not in pain, but she will ignore anything below 80.
Mhm.
The other dog, much more sensitive, responds to 20. Same size, same breed, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So for Ivy, if we're working with her and then we find like, oh, her number is like 65, right? And you pick her up and we're explaining everything to you, and we're like, yeah, her number is around 65. And you're like, but she's only 28 pounds, right? But we understand she's 28 pounds, but she needs 65.
Yeah.
That's where we also tend to get problems. Okay. So that's why that video is so important, because you're going to see it real time. And then
Mhm.
you see it as he explains it, and it kind of gets you just
Right.
comfortable with the idea of like, okay. And we always start low. We don't jump in at 65.
Sure.
We start low, we work our way up, and then Ivy tells us what's too much and what's too little.
Okay.
Okay. And then we get all the information and then we relay it to you.
Okay.
Um, other
And so Enrique, you said Enrique does the board and train,
correct.
correct? Okay.
Yeah. So everybody here works with the dogs. I work with them if I get a chance, but I'm usually in consultations or doing training sessions.
Mhm.
But all my handlers here work with the dogs. Okay. So they're getting worked with different people, different personality types, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But Enrique is the one that does all the videos currently. And then he also does all the follow-ups. Okay.
Okay.
In the consistent person. Um, and then yeah, other questions.
Um, so how you said there's different, weeks to do it. What would you suggest at this point? At least a week and maybe do 2 weeks? Like, do I have to, when I set it up, I have to know like exactly how many weeks I want to do it? How does that work?
Right. So it's best if you come in going, I want to do 2 or I want to do 1, because I only take so many boarding trains at a time.
Okay.
Okay. So if I know if we have so I limited it to 4. The only reason why we had 5 is because we had a puppy boarding train.
Okay.
Okay. So the puppy is easier. So I took on 5, and then now we had 2 leave, 1 left earlier in the week, 2 left yesterday, and then 1 leaves tomorrow. So then we're, as far as I know, we got 1 coming in on Friday. So that leaves 3 spots, right? So then if
Okay.
you come in and you go, hey, I'm going to do 1, and then I'm going to see what happens. We go, okay, and we block that time slot for you, right? But then we put people around you. So then
Mhm.
if it's like we got another boarding train coming and we're thinking you're ending after a week, we go in and book that time after you. Okay.
Okay.
So that if you wanted to continue the program, you would have your dog and then you'd have to come back. You
Okay.
Otherwise, if you book ahead of time, it's just more straightforward.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
For you, at least a week.
Mhm.
Um, this is pretty straightforward. If you just want to have more, so the longer the program, obviously more follow-up you're going to get. So if
Sure.
you'd like to have more follow-up, and this is on my website. If you
Okay.
if you go to canineperspective.com,
I have been on your website, but and I did look at videos and stuff, but so where you're specifically telling me to look.
so
Um,
if you go to my website, you should see on a tab Logan Square facility,
okay.
and you hover over that, you should see board and train uh,
Okay.
as an option. You'll click on that, and then you'll see it broken down. It'll say the 1 day, 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week,
Okay.
and it'll be a rundown of what to expect. The 1 week will say 1 video, X amount of follow-up lessons,
Right.
it's put in hours. So if it's like 3 hours of follow-up, then it's like 3 1-hour lessons technically, right?
Okay.
Uh, and then what you would expect to have accomplished within the time that dog is here at my
Okay.
facility. Okay.
So if you have a dog that's, doing well, like really kind of progressing quicker, like do you keep going over those or you kind of move on?
Pushing.
Okay.
Yeah, every dog is different. So like we had a dog, Quinn, who just wrapped up yesterday. She was very fearful, wanted to run away from everything, very panicky. And she didn't progress like another dog would progress. She
Mhm.
progressed like she was like kind of like 2 weeks behind of any other dog. Okay. But then other dogs that are like really good. So we had a Doberman. She was a 4.5-month-old Dobie. Her name's Azula.
Mhm.
She came here for 4 weeks and we pushed her really far because she had the personality type that took to the e-collar.
Sure.
So we just kept teaching more stuff. It's the same thing I do with my clients with the in-person stuff. If I get a person who just does their homework, I just keep teaching more stuff.
Mhm.
I don't go like, well, you only pay for 6 classes and this is only what I cover within 6 classes. I go, great, you're doing your homework. Let's do more stuff.
Okay.
So it's the same concept.
All right.
And we do progress pretty quick here. Because my staff is their skills as trainers allow them to kind of how do you say, push the dog quickly, but still at the
Mhm.
same time maintain reliability.
Okay. And then for the sessions, like each day, then is it like certain hours then that they're being worked with? Because I know, they get tired or they need downtime. So does it tell me this on the website or?
I think it says 4 to 6 hours of work throughout the day, but
Okay.
the dog is technically training all day.
Okay.
So what I mean by 4 to 6 hours is like 4 to 6 hours of active work. So my daycare or my facility is structured. So she would get to do daycare, so she would get to play and stuff.
Mhm.
We teach the dogs how to do treadmill, so they get physical exercise. They get downtime in their kennel to rest and decompress. They also get downtime on place command, which is the stationary command that we talked about. So
Yeah.
she might be doing 2 hours on place command. Now that's technically training, right? Because she's being stationary, but she's in a resting state where she's not actively being worked, right? But
Right.
she's technically training. But there'll
Mhm.
be dogs walking by, there'll be dogs on a treadmill, there'll be puppies playing next to her, there'll be dogs playing over there, there's clients walking in and out. So she's still training, but it's not like an active training session.
Okay.
And then like each handler works the dog about 30 minutes at a time. And then she'd get her walk, her daily walk to go out and expose her and then to apply all that stuff outside.
Okay.
So she does get rest time. We don't overwork the dogs to the point where, they're just like wiped. Yeah. So they get resting breaks both in the kennel and technically on place command. But we work them. So like, let's say she's going to be taken outside for like a potty break or something. We're employing the obedience that she's learned.
Okay.
Right. So it's also being reinforced
Yeah.
throughout the day. So that's part of the training as well.
Okay. That sounds great.
Other questions?
Um, I don't think so at this moment. It's been very informative.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. If you'd like to get like an example of what those videos look like,
Mhm.
if you click on any videos, it should be on the board and train page
Okay.
where you'll see like it's like a playlist. Um, and you should see Enrique. He's like a darker toned gentleman with like longer hair.
Okay.
It'll be called like board and train explanatory sessions.
Okay.
And that's like the where he's going over everything, and you'll see it'll be like an hour to hour and a half long video,
Okay.
and you'll see like we've got a number of them. There's Klaus, there's Quinn, there's Anna, there's King, who was a daycare and train. Like there's just all these examples, but that'll kind of give you an idea of like what the videos look like.
And so you never have a problem with, so they come for the board and train, and obviously, they know you, they're listening to then apply it when she comes home. As long as we're watching the videos and doing them, then she'll be responding and listening to what we're doing at home then as well.
Right. So that's the beauty of e-collar,
Okay.
is it has the highest rate of transference, and it doesn't require you to be a dog trainer.
Okay.
Okay. So as if the what would hold you back is if Enrique said Ivy's number is 65 and you picked up Ivy, you watch the videos and you do everything in the videos, but you don't put it to 65, it's not going to work.
Mhm.
Okay. Because Ivy's going, oh, okay, like at the facility, they'll go to 65, but you only go to 25,
Yeah.
you
I'll
know?
see what I can get away with here.
Yeah. So that's so the dog is always the easy part. It's getting the human to be on the same page.
Yeah.
That's why I try to explain this stuff to let people know, like, it's not, your dog's not a vehicle. You can't take them to the car mechanic and say like, hey, I need a new muffler, and then drive out with the new muffler and everything's good to go. She's a living, breathing creature. She's like a 3 to 4 year old child, right? And 3 to 4 year old children know, oh, if grandma, grandpa around, I can get away with more stuff. And then if mom and
Yeah.
dad are around, I have to be more well behaved.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And as long as you
Okay.
watch the videos and you practice the videos, there's going to be hiccups.
Sure.
The biggest thing that people, if they're being consistent, at least with the training stuff, is that it is a lot of stuff for you to remember.
Sure.
So then you might be thinking you're doing something correctly, but then it's incorrect.
Mhm.
So if you're doing something wrong body language wise, Ivy's reading your body language. She's
Yeah.
not listening to what you're saying, right? So like we've had clients come back with that problem, and then we'll tell them like, show us what you've been doing, and
Mhm.
then stuff would be incorrect.
Right.
So then we fix that for them, and we go, okay, this is why you're having an issue, and then they'll fix those things, and all of a sudden the dog's doing much better.
Can you do any of that, like, if it's kind of a quick question or something, set up like a 10-minute just Zoom to go over something? Do you guys do anything like that after or no?
Uh, Enrique usually follows up with people with a call.
Okay.
I mean, I don't see why Zoom would be a problem because we Zoom all the time.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to him and see what he says.
Okay.
I leave that to him just because
Yeah,
I know he's got his own stuff too.
sure. Definitely. Okay.
Um, other questions?
No, I think it's good.
Okay, so then I'm gonna talk to Maria, and if you know you want to do a board and train, which
Yeah.
sounds, is that
Yeah,
correct?
I think that's what I would like to do.
Is I'll just tell her to put you in contact with Kimberly.
Okay.
This way, if Kimberly emails you, it doesn't get spammed,
Okay.
and Kimberly will take over it from there.
Okay.
Okay,
That sounds great, Jesse.
awesome. So it's a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, so great to talk to you. Thanks for all the good information. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. If anything pops up, you let us know. Okay,
Okay. All right. Thank you.
take care.
Bye.